Good morning, Professor Mahesh, and thanks a lot for your time and welcome on YourPedia.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, Dr.
Professor,
Vijayender.
yeah, Professor Mahesh, this my interaction with you is related to numerous research areas, research domains in which you are specialist. To mention a few, your research areas are signal and image processing, biomedical devices, rotor dynamics, machine learning, embedded system, and many more. So I'll be asking you a couple of things related to your field of the specializations. And also, Professor Mahesh, one of your projects named Automated Lung Ultrasound Video Analysis Tool was recently displayed in first ever Research and Development Fair, which was conducted in IIT Delhi, 14th and 15th of October.
Right.
So I'll be even discussing with you about that particular project, sir. I have collected a couple of interaction points to discuss with you today. So if you permit me, we can start one by one.
Yeah. Thank you. Go ahead,
Okay.
please.
Professor Mahesh, my first interaction point normally is related to the personality I invite. In this case, I have one question related to you only, related to your academic journey. When I was going through your webpage, I found that you have received your graduation from Rajiv Gandhi Institute of Technology in Electrical and Electronics Department. And that after that, you started immediately after that graduation, you started teaching. So I understand. I mean, many students have this urge, and many people have this urge to go for some particular career like teaching. But normally they wait for masters and PhDs, and then they think of getting into this teaching job. So I want to ask you why you decided to immediately start teaching as lecturer after graduation.
Yeah, thank you. I think first of all, you've gone through my profile in detail, and thanks for that. And this question is actually many people ask me the same. And probably I should say two aspects of it actually. One is the timing. I graduated 2003 time. So if you remember, 2002 was a recession,
Yes.
and then campus placements were not at all existing when I
Okay.
passed out.
Hmm.
And and of course, during that time, I think going for a lecture option, MTech
Hmm.
was not mandatory, which is the case now.
Yes.
Rules and regulations have changed.
Yes.
And but on a personal side, the reason why I chosen teaching is definitely I would like love teaching. That is definitely the passion. But if I take that away, there is a personal motivation also because I wanted to do higher studies
Hmm.
and particularly go for an MTech program and was going for gate preparation and so on.
Okay.
So, and I thought teaching is the best option because all of us say teaching is like double learning. You learn and then you again learn it. So you also know it very well.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's the reason, primary reason I went for the teaching career to start with. And my objective was always industry and core engineering industry, not the software. And that's the reason why MTech was sort of mandatory because even those days, the core engineering demanded masters, not
Okay.
really the
Hmm.
BTech. Now it is even
Hmm.
more important for anyone who's planning to do a core engineering.
Okay.
So
So
that's a primary reason. Yeah.
okay. So wonderful. So that means you had decided that someday you will be in teaching.
Yeah.
So you wanted to take exposure of that, and then you did
Correct.
teaching for a couple of years.
Correct.
Professor Mahesh, my next question is also related to the same thing. Like for teaching, obviously everybody knows that at one stage or the other you have to go for doctorate, master's, doctorate, and all. Nowadays we have a couple of options in IIT system also where students can avail direct PhD opportunities. Especially those who have decided that they want to be in research and development and academics kind of areas. So in your case, Professor Mahesh, you did your direct PhD, if I am right,
Correct.
from a very, very prestigious Nanyang Technical University, NTU Singapore. This is a very prestigious university globally. And my questions now related to this, I have two queries and two questions to ask you, Professor. Number one, many of my students also ask me, sir, we are getting direct PhD opportunities. We want to land up in teaching, but do you think this is a right decision? Without MTech, we go for PhD, or are we missing something by not doing MTech and then directly going for PhD? This is my first question, sir. And my second question is NTU Singapore direct PhD. Many students are not aware that foreign universities also can provide you this option. Okay, going for direct PhD. And I'm very sure the kind of prestigious university NTU and NUS are in Singapore, it is very difficult to get into these universities, especially for direct PhD. So how did you manage that?
Yeah, I think this again, many people ask the same question: MTech or with direct PhD, which one to prefer? So it depends on the person to person. So I should say that it's best to do masters first and then go for PhD, because then you get an experience of whether you are actually want to pursue PhD in that direction. Preferably, when you do masters, it's MEng or masters by research. Will If you want to do PhD, that is the ideal scenario because you get a feel of it. And in my case also, the option was there. So I was joining an integrated PhD program, which is, I should say, lucky in a way, in the sense like it happens, and the competition that time may be much lower than if we compare now to get
Mm,
into universities.
mm,
And my journey is like, in a way, it's like sort of not planned or anything. So as I said, I wanted to do MTech definitely,
mm, mm,
and I was preparing for GATE and got a decent GATE score, and was
mm,
waiting for results from IITs, particularly IIT Madras, which was closer to us from Kerala. So
mm,
that was the sort of plan. And then this happened in a sort of an accidental way, that NTU has this program of India Connect, where professors from NTU visit India, different parts of India, and they will sort of recruit people and then sort of give
mm,
this option of MS or PhD. And my thing, it's like it's happened in such a way that it got through connections. It's not like, because of course first rank and all helps, I think, in a way to screen out profile and all, but beyond that, I think it is all through the networking that happened. It's like my professor in BTech's studies, Professor Johnson. So he was doing PhD in IASC,
mm,
and his colleague was another professor, Professor Rajan Babu.
mm,
So they were talking about each other, and Professor Vinod, under which I did PhD in NTU, Professor Vinod Prasad. So
mm.
he was a student of Professor Rajan Babu, and
Okay.
he was looking for some
Okay.
students to
Mm,
do PhD. And
okay.
then Professor Rajan Babu discussed with Professor Johnson, my professor, and then it got connected, and then I applied.
Mm,
And I had an interview in Chennai, where Professor Vinod interacted with me, and then
mm,
it all happened that
mm,
it clicked and then it went through.
mm, mm,
So, but to answer your question in a short way, it's like it depends on, if you want to pursue PhD and not very sure about it, you definitely go for a master's and then decide based on that whether you want to continue. But if you are already experienced or interested, very keen in PhD,
mm, mm,
definitely you can
mm,
have the integrated
mm,
PhD. But there are some implications which I realized it after this. I think some state universities in India want to have MTech before for a teaching career,
yes,
for example.
yes,
But
yes,
unlike IITs and all, doesn't have that mandatory.
yes.
I understand NITs also may not have it, but
Mm,
yeah, this probably it may go, because as people realize that once you do PhD, it
mm,
is actually almost sort of fine.
mm,
If you want, I mean, skip the
mm,
MTech degree, it's fine. But on that note, when you go for direct PhD, you need to do more subjects, more coursework. So
mm,
that is mandatory, because it
mm.
should be equivalent to sort of master's credits and all.
Hmm. So that's perfect. So if I summarize what answer you gave, Professor Mahesh, like if you can go for MTech if you're not very clear which areas you want to work or which career opportunities you want to explore. And certainly I know some of the universities, state universities where MTech they put it as a condition. So maybe it should not become your handicap later on not having MTech. So maybe that another option is good. But IIT, NIT, becoming teacher, you are the example, sir. So that will never be a trouble. If
Yeah.
you do really good work, then that is not an issue. Professor, one more question related to this only. Since we are talking about NTU, and you said that yes, collaborations and interactions and even getting in touch with the professors who may be looking for good students always is helpful, and that is what the students can learn from you also. If they want to work under some professor, they can always get in connection with that professor. now, NTU Singapore professor is very reputed institute. I want to ask you, as a doctoral student, when you pursue your PhD from such universities, what are the typical opportunities available to the students?
Yeah, so if you're talking about the admission opportunities, I think the best way, as I said, is like connect with the professors there and then interact with them, so that it will be easier and they know already the person who they are taking.
Mm,
And the scholarship opportunities, I think Singapore is one place where a lot of opportunities are there. Beyond the time I did the PhD, I was under the Nanyang scholarship scheme,
okay.
and but now beyond that, there are other opportunities also. So there are many options which students can easily nowadays Google search and find. And but one I missed it. I think one interesting aspect is like Singapore considers GATE as a valid entry
Yes.
point. They don't need GRE or TOEFL for that
Yes.
matter to get into. So that's something which many people were not aware, and so that's something I wanted to convey here as well. So
Mm.
GATE is a valid score in Singapore and in some UK universities as well.
Yes.
So you can get entry through GATE. In my case also, GATE was mandatory. So
Yes.
GATE
Yes.
score was mandatory in that scenario.
Mm.
And once you have it, there are opportunities. A lot of, in fact, some professors have project funding opportunities also. That's why getting in touch with professors is also important.
Mm. And Professor, what about opportunities after PhD from NTU Singapore?
Yeah. So one problem with Singapore probably is a very small country. So direct opportunity for you as after the PhD is very limited. If you're looking for an industry career, for example, which was the case for me.
Okay.
But postdoctoral options there are plenty because NTU, NUS, and now two more universities like SUTD, SIT. So
Mm.
there are a lot of opportunities. And then Singapore is like a gateway to many Southeast Asian countries as well as to Australia and New Zealand, for example.
Mm.
So now all those countries are also advanced a lot when compared to 2010 time frame of
Mm.
opportunities I'm talking about.
Mm.
So definitely a lot of
Professor,
possibilities.
this NUS looks like quite old university, National University Singapore, but NTU looks like is a recent university.
Yeah.
And I recently visited NUS also and NTU both universities. And I came to know some people, Indian students there, they told that NTU is fast coming up. Though recently established university, but NTU has come a long way. So very brief about that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, NTU, I don't know whether we can call it new university because when I was there, they celebrated 50 years. So definitely
That is
it's sort
NTU.
of, yeah, NTU, correct.
Okay. Hmm.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely. I mean, the experience that we get from going from India to a university like NTU is definitely enormous. They have all the facilities to start with, so we
Okay.
can't complain about any of those aspects. And then one striking thing I think about NTU or in Singapore in general is like they keep the greenery as it is. It's
Yes.
like even if you're building up the construction, it's kept as it is.
Hmm.
And from technical point of view, the facilities are top class. There
Hmm.
is no doubt about it. And right the moment you go there, if you're going for research, you are into research. The moment you enter there.
Okay, wonderful. Professor, one more thing which I found from your academic background related to postdoc is normally people after graduation get in industries and after PhD get in academics. In your case, it is reverse. In after graduation, you landed up in academics immediately, and after PhD, postdoc, after postdoc, you joined industry. So, how that you decided after postdoc? Typically, people join academics, not industries.
Yeah, I think the first point we already discussed about why I chosen the academic career. The second point is also I was very clear that after engineering, I will go to industry. But
Okay.
unfortunately, during that time, recession and other related aspects didn't help. So
Mm,
even while doing PhD, my first priority was to get into industry. And
mm,
in fact, I feel like that is a right decision and probably it will help a lot of PhD scholars. Even my own PhD scholars, I'm trying to push them to industry if they are interested in. The
mm,
primary reason actually is you will end up in getting lot of fast reality check and problems that you should work on
mm,
ready hands on, right? We not need not actually go and explore because you will get to know about it.
mm,
And the as I said, Singapore doesn't have that many of industry. Even then when I was doing only few, and they were not really into a lot of R&D there, it was most like development and engineering. So I
mm,
had to explore outside, and
mm,
that's where I ended up in going into GE Global Research in Bangalore.
mm,
So
mm,
it was like predefined for me. It's like I will go to industry at some point in time, and
mm,
that PhD in fact helped in a way. And
mm,
that was the time probably 2010 onwards was then PhD was sort of looked after from many of these R&D MNCs
mm.
particularly. And now if you see a lot of opportunities actually
No,
for
no, that's true.
PhD scholars. Yeah.
That's true. So we cannot say that after PhD only opportunities are in academics. We
No.
there are equal good opportunities in industries also.
Yeah, in fact, I should say everyone should try and experience the industry, even
Yes,
if they want to end up in academics at some
they
point
should
in
have
time.
some experience of
They should,
industries.
yeah, that will help a lot.
Yeah, wonderful. And now that is my next interaction point, Professor, is related to your industrial experience only. So from 10 to 17, you worked with General Electric Global Research Center. And then you worked for a year more with the Samsung Research Institute. What difference do you find in terms of infrastructure, approach, and work environment as compared to now the academic institutes and earlier academic institutes you had the experience? So what difference do you find between industries and academics?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of difference in the sense like industry is always focused because they have problems in hand and you have to solve them in as soon as possible. So I was lucky to be, I should thank GE Global Research for the excellent opportunity. That 7 years have changed my life in all aspects in terms of maturity and exposure. And PhD is generally is not the end of the world. It's a
Yes,
starting point,
yes,
making us comfortable to learn any topics of interest
true,
in that sense.
true.
So overall, I stick to the signal image processing throughout my career, even though applications sort of differ. And the facility wise, you asked it, it's exactly like they have the top class facilities for a problem, for the problems that they want to solve. Unlike if you come to IITs, definitely we also have top class facilities, but our focus is diverse in the sense like generic, and we are not trying to solve a particular problem. So if you go to GE, for example, or Samsung, they have the top whatever. If you want to solve a problem, they have the facilities tuned for that and exactly in line top class sort of facilities. But that may not be needed in an academic setting because we may not be like solving a particular problem all the time. So that is something which is different in that aspect. And on the work environment or people side, I was fortunate in the sense like, or in fact, GE Global Research is popularly known to attract a lot of PhD scholars across the world. So I was in a team which was like a lot of talented people from PhDs from EPFL, Stanford, Princeton, and so on. So that made me like humble. I mean, we can call something some sort of a leveling, right? You come after PhD, you feel like maybe you are something, and then you go into an environment where you have BTechs, MTechs, and PhD scholars, and all working on a same problem that is sort of attacked. And one important thing, again, the advice of going to an industry helps is like we'll come to focus and how to attack a problem in within a short span in time. That is something which helps. And then what all you need if you want to run a or conclude a project, what all you need from right from the resources to the end deliverables, that are also in a timely fashion we will learn. I hope I answered your
Yes,
questions.
you very rightly mentioned everything, Professor. And you raised a very relevant point. You said that even if you want to land up ultimately in academics, you should have some industrial exposure. That's a very, very relevant point.
Yes.
And I want you to explain little this particular thing in a little elaborate way. If a person wants to land up in academics, how can you say a person having industrial experience will be more useful in academics? And the same thing, how can you say the person having a lot of academic experience like yours and going to industry? Though you have partially answered that question, but still I want you to focus on this and give us again the explanation of it, that the person with academic experience going into industry, how he will be better asset for the industry, and similarly a person coming from industry to academics, how he can be better asset for the academics.
Yeah, definitely. I think even now, as even I moved to academics, even now I'm continuously collaborating with all my collaborators previously. So that is still continuing. And one important act, maybe I'll answer the academics to industry translation. I think that is even valid for a PhD student because for 3 to 5 years they spend on a problem in an academic setting and then going and sitting in an industry. It sometimes many people may not like that experience because you, as I said, you feel like you accomplished something and then you are brought back to reality sort of. But
Yes.
the help there actually is we are going to work on a team which is diverse, like BTech, MTech, and then PhD scholars as well in that team is there. So your academic experience is going to help you in attacking the problem more meticulously, maybe more mathematically, because the other side is more trial and error in a way. If you having the other experience, you have to tend into because you don't have enough time to have a beautiful mathematical model and then try to come up solution to that. So there's a right blend you can bring, and then you bring that sort of a theoretical approach to a problem to the practical setting. And now the other way around is even more interesting because you experienced the industry life, then you understand how to solve a problem, and you will realize that there are steps to solving a problem. There's something known as minimum viable product, which means you don't really try to be perfect product, but you solve the problem. That's it. So it may not be perfect and it may not win you market or anything, but it's a sort of a solution to a problem. And then you keep on improvising on top of it, like version one, version two, what we call in softwares or something like that. Right? So that is something which I'm trying to adopt in my academic life now, because if I try to solve everything together, it will take 5 years, 10 years and all, and maybe I will get lost in the journey. So if you break them into smaller things and then attack the problem, it will be fantastic. And another thing is like, while moving back to academics from industry, if I work on the problems that industry is solving now, they may not be interested at all in collaborating with me, because they have top people, top facilities for that problem, as I said. And repeating that in academic setting, it's beyond us. So we have to move ahead slightly, and maybe they are not even thinking about it, or they think that problem is really stupid to attack at this point. If we try to solve that, we will attract them in a way. So that is some experience probably will help when we move from industry to academic, because otherwise it's we are not sure what problems they're targeting, or what is the level they are at this point, right?
So in nutshell, we can say, Professor, that this is the best way to, bridge the academia industry gap that we have, and bring both the things
Yeah,
together.
I think maybe if time permits, I think two things government is also trying. One is introducing the professor of practice, which is like attracting industry people without PhD to come to academia and then work with us, which
Okay.
is going to definitely help. And then the second option is like industry sabbatical. New IITs like IIT Palakkad is trying for that, where the summer time where we have 3 months or something like that, or even a semester break if possible, go and work in an industry. So this probably is somebody who's directly come from postdoc to academics and they want to experience this. This is an option which is coming up.
Wonderful. So these two things which you mentioned, they're very, very interesting. We were not aware about it. So these are really going to be very, very useful. Like professors going in the summers on sabbatical to industries, and industry people can come and work as professors in some academic institutes. Wonderful idea, Professor. I hope it gets materialized. Now, coming to your research areas, Professor, during these years, you have worked on a couple of domains. That is, as you mentioned, signals and image processing, biomedical devices, rotor dynamics, embedded system, and computational work for machine learning. These are the areas in which you have worked. You were honored twice with GE Wide Technical Excellence Award. What, according to you, helped you to slip into so many multidisciplinary domains? And what would you suggest to young students or young scholars or researchers who have to deal with the dilemma while choosing their areas of specialization?
Yeah, I think maybe I just want to clarify. My domain is always been signal image processing, and the applications have actually moved on from one to another. So I would like to keep that way. And the journey was also in a way like ups and downs in that sense. Like, so I just want to clarify right from the PhD time. So I did PhD in signal processing for wireless communications, multi-standard wireless communications, which is actually the 4G and 5G that we talk about now. And I had no background on digital signal processing when I joined for PhD. So my bachelor's was electrical electronics, and DSP was more like a elective course in that sense in those days. Now it may be mandatory for because of the advancements. So then was able to learn during the first phase the signal processing, and that's one area which sometimes you get study something and then you get attracted to it. So signal processing remains in me all the time, and that's something. And then got this opportunity, wonderful opportunity in GE. And because of GE Global Research and their excellent things into different aspects is where I exposed all these, whatever areas that you're talking about, starting from rotor dynamics to biomedical. So that's a long journey. And finally ended up in ultrasound imaging. And all throughout, I should say that signal processing remains the core. So I am not going to work on understanding the physics of rotor dynamics. I will sit with somebody who's expert. Fortunately, GE has that provision, who is actually experts in rotor dynamics and vibrations and all. We'll sit with them and then try to understand the physics so that I can incorporate those concepts into signal processing.
Okay.
So that is something which is the journey that I had. So I should not say that I deviated a lot and only applications changed. And finally now ultrasound is something which sort of close to me now, because it's been 8 years into it and now fully focused on that. I'm not going to change anything from here, because now I have more freedom to be choosing, right? So that's something. And the last question you asked about the advice to the youngsters is something that it may take some time for you to, even this I tell among the BTech students who approach the same question, it will take time for us to understand what we really like, because even all of us goes through this when we study electrical engineering, for example, the different concepts you study, and most of us get attracted because of the teachers who teach us, because if somebody teaches very well, even if the topic is tough, we get attracted to that, and then finally ending it up. So that comes and goes, and finally you will get attracted to something which you feel like, yeah, I two things. I think one is your passion towards that. Second is like the opportunities and that space. So if there is a lot of opportunity, you feel like in that space a lot of people are working, then maybe it's the right way to go forward. But having said that, don't be so rigid, because
Okay.
you never know. Because as in my example, if I can take, is I moved from wireless communication to
Okay.
ultrasound, which is two different applications, a luxury to a necessity sort of. But the journey still sticks to signal processing. It's
Okay.
only the applications that keeps on moving or changing.
Okay, so I think it is very imperative for any professor or any researcher to keep evolving, because the technology keeps evolving, new things keep on coming, new applications keep on coming, and to do purposeful research in your career, I think evolving yourself and keep learning is very, very important, Professor.
Yeah, I agree. 100% agree to you actually. So we need to be on the lookout, because even now the world is even faster moving compared to maybe 10 years before. Particularly if you are into machine learning and all, you have to be on the toes and see where we can apply all this.
Okay. So, Professor Mahesh, when you decided finally to leave the industrial career, wonderful industrial career, and join IIT Palakkad and as a teacher, as an academic career you chose, by that time you already had a lot of years of experience in teaching as well as in industries. So, finally you took a call and finally you decided to land up in the career which is academic career. So I want to ask you that the industrial career is very good in terms of the salary structure and everything. It is a very promising career over there. So I want to ask you that what motivated you, or what was the criteria, what were the parameters you considered to decide finally that I want to be in academic?
Yeah, I think maybe I should say that I not stopped industry career in a way, because I'm still collaborating, and
Yes.
anytime this industry sabbatical, if it happens in reality, definitely I would love to go back and work again.
Mm.
And but academics, as I said, is some space where a lot of freedom is there for us. So
Yes.
that is the most attractive, and particularly IITs. I should
Mm.
thank government of India for still
Mm.
keeping it like in that shape,
Mm.
where you are free to explore and do a lot of risky research, I should say,
Mm.
where the chances of
Yes.
failure is much
Yes.
more than
Mm.
the other. So that is something which is the primary reason. So after a point of time, you realize, I mean, this is a 10 years or 7 years, 8 2 years, you will realize that where you want to go. So
Mm.
it's like an evolving process.
Okay.
And if you want to stick, as I said, salary wise or benefit wise, remaining in industry is the ideal situation. But
Mm.
then inside of you, if you are passionate about doing something which is independent without the constraints of
Mm.
having, because you can't blame industry also, because they are after profit and you can't really work on any problem that you
Yes.
want to.
Yes.
So if you want to go in that route, you have to obviously switch to academics career. Yeah, definitely the monetary wise, you'll have a short term cut suddenly going from an industry to academics. But I
Mm.
should see long term you will able to recover that, because now we are in a very good situation in India where startup is encouraged, particularly in biomedical space. Make in India is encouraged. So
Mm.
professors have that, because IITs, for example, have that facility of incubation centers and all,
Mm.
where we can evolve, and you're free to have consultancy and you are free to start up. So
Mm.
that probably will make up all these monetary laws that we're talking about. If you're really passionate and want to make money, there is opportunity in academic space as well.
Yes. So, Professor, I got the answer, very good answer for this particular question which I asked you. And why from industry to academics, you have given answer very nicely. To summarize that, you said that yes, for creativity, for innovation, you need to have some kind of freedom, ecosystem of freedom, and that is what you enjoy in IITs and academic institutes. And the second, you said that being in IIT, being professor in IIT, you are not quitting your career in industry. You are collaborating with industries, and in a way, you are actually working on the industrial project, so you get the advantage of both. So very beautiful explanation, Professor. And now my next interaction point is you're serving as board member of academic study and industrial collaboration and sponsored research at IIT Palakkad. What major gaps do you see today that our courses and our curriculum have, which restrict our young researchers from pursuing the R&D careers, R&D work in the meaningful way, and do the research in those areas which are going to give some solution to the real world problem of the industries or society. So what stops youngsters from doing that kind of research?
Yeah, I think this is something a very important topic, and I'm sure the government also is with the new education policy and all is thinking in this direction right from the not just BTech, right from the education, primary, secondary education as well. So, and something which we need to discuss a lot. And inside IIT Palakkad, one advantage that we have is a new generation IIT is like we have a lot more flexibility in introducing different types of courses and curriculum, for example, right? Autonomous that aspect is there. So recently we have introduced a credit based curriculum from 2022 batch, where students are able to complete this many number of credits, but the choice of courses is left to them. So that is something which is probably a right direction to think of. So what is missing between industry and academy, I think many people might have told it before me as well, is like engineering. I think one aspect is the hands-on aspect. So people are moving more and more away from the hands-on in the recent past. At least maybe COVID didn't help at all because everyone was confined to online sort of education. The
Mm,
hands-on part is something which has to be encouraged more and more.
mm,
And what we can do actually, at least we are trying in IIT Palakkad, is like every course has, at least in electrical engineering, every course has a lab associated with it. It's
mm,
mandatory, and
okay.
also projects associated with every
Mm,
course. So
mm,
not just the test-based evaluation, the projects and the hands-on based continuous sort of evaluation is mandatory. It should
mm,
be encouraged more and more,
mm,
and that probably will bridge that gap. But then to bridge that gap between industry and academy, we need to know what is that industry is using.
mm,
So I will take one course which I am taking because I've not been a person to comment on the whole aspect of it. For example, microprocessor systems is one course which I've been driving in IIT Palakkad from the start. So
mm,
one thing was very clear, like we are not going to teach 8051 or 8085 because that's been the trend in many, even we studied that way.
mm,
We moved suddenly to
okay.
ARM based
Mm,
processors, and ARM also helped in that say. So we are teaching Cortex M0 instead of I mean 8051, and this will have modern tools also to program them like Keel Microvision and all they are exposed to.
mm,
And many students actually got jobs related to it, and they're coming back to us and saying that this really helped because the training was sort of very swift there, because whatever they industry when they give the training, it was much easier for them to train these students also, because it's so I should say, just to keep it very summarized, we should talk the other way with industry, not just research
mm,
but also the academic aspects as well, and
mm,
then try to modernize our courses rather than sticking to like a
mm,
history
mm,
of courses
mm,
where we still follow the same thing going forward, which
mm,
probably will help. And we're trying to implement it slowly. It's not easy, but
mm.
slowly probably it will things will change.
Okay, Professor. Now you are the you are the person who has joined academia after a lot of years of industrial experience, and I think you are the right person. I should ask this question related to industry academia interaction, and what steps do you think an institute can take in promoting this particular collaboration and bridging this particular gap, because it is very helpful for even students, and to create that entrepreneurial environment for students also, if industries visit or industry projects come to academia and professors are taking that. So how do you see this entire situation, and how any particular institute, premium institute like IIT Palakkad, can think of in this particular direction, and what are the steps they should take?
Yeah, I think all IITs are doing that. In fact, the IIT R&D Fest was sort of a right step in that
I
direction,
know that,
bringing
yes.
all the stakeholders in one step. But as individual IIT, definitely we are also doing. So this industry academia conclave, which is happening every year, is
Mm,
like bringing people from industry, spending a day in the campus, interacting with students. It's something which happened last 3 4 years now. So
mm,
there is something there. But I should say, institute level, there are limitations. So they can just initiate these collaborations and invite people and all, but it is the faculty and the student level that should sustain this going forward. So
mm,
one problem that I see, at least seeing across different people, is like when we talk to industry, we should talk in timelines, and we should restrict the things to be quantifiable time.
mm,
We should not say that it will eventually get done, because that will distract them, because they can't wait it over the time.
okay.
Similarly, one good opportunity I should see is like students going for internships and spending a lot of time with industry. So we
mm,
have done that for our MTech program. So the second year, they can take the courses early and then spend the entire year with industry.
mm,
And then a project which will be running between the professor and the industry collaborator there will may evolve into a longer project in the longer run.
mm.
So that is something which probably I think faculty level and student level people have to come, irrespective of IITs or any institute. They have to actually start interacting. The institute
Yes.
can only facilitate it, but to
Mm.
make it reality, the
Yeah,
faculty should come, because a
people.
lot of MOUs, NDAs can get signed, but
Mm.
eventually execution side, students and faculty should come up.
Hmm. Very precisely and very briefly, you have given the answer to this, professor, and the solution is that only. And I also strongly believe that it is the people, it is the professor and students and all who are to take initiative, who are to approach the industries. And if that is done, industries are more than willing to, I think, collaborate with the people and researchers like you.
Yeah.
So that can be the solution.
Yeah, and the language also should change in a way. Like the professors also have to come down to the industry level and then talk in the same language so that both of them are comfortable. It's a
Hmm.
win-win sort of situation, both
That's
sides.
true. And you rightly said that first ever R&D fair was one example, and this is one first step in the right direction. And my next interaction point is related to that only, Professor. So one of your projects, as I already mentioned, automated lung ultrasound video analysis tool was displayed in that R&D fair in IT Delhi. Now I request you to briefly tell us about your this project.
Yeah. So as the name suggests, this project is to use ultrasound for lung and to find infection in the lung and then to track that infection over time. So this project actually shaped up during the COVID-19 time. So it was like a sort of we were trying for solutions to the COVID-19, however we can help. So again, this was an initiative which was done within IIT Palakkad. So Professor Vinod Prasad, who was the Dean ICSR that time, so he brainstormed among few of us and see what all we can do in our own respective areas to try and help the community
Mm,
during that time.
mm,
And that's where I was working in ultrasound. So this where the lung ultrasound suddenly was sort of an idea where we could actually push on.
mm,
So the idea is very simple. So if we want to see inside the lung, we need to image it. And if you want to image it, there are many ways to do it. And the gold standard, at least in India, is, or the popular one is the X-ray and the CT.
okay.
So, but the problem with X-ray and CT, we all know they are ionizing. So you can't use them over regular intervals or maybe
Mm,
multiple times on the patient because do more harm than good. And we need a non-invasive and non sort of ionizing way of imaging it. And that's where ultrasound nicely fits in.
okay.
But ultrasound, the problem is it is operator dependent.
Okay.
So the clinician should be sort of expert to take the scan and then interpret the image.
Mhm.
And that is really difficult given the situation, the pandemic situation where so many patients. And that's where the techniques of artificial intelligence, particularly machine learning way of guided scanning and then finding the infection and the tracking will help. So it rightly sort of fit into that sort of urgent need. And then we have this solution and that's where we pitched in. So it's a complete package sort of including the protocol. So you, if anyone has an ultrasound machine, they can follow that protocol,
Mm,
take the lung scan, and
mm,
then upload the videos into our package. It will give the score, the infection score, severity score, and
mm,
you can do it over days and you can see the progress of the infection.
mm, mm,
So
mm.
this is the overall idea of the project.
Okay, Professor, when I was going through the project, which was, details were available on the site. So I found some terminologies which I want you to please elaborate.
Sure.
Lightweight algorithm based on you look only once version 5. It is acronym is YOLO5, and
Correct.
single shot detection, acronym SSD. These were developed during your research. So can you please elaborate on these terms also?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Actually, the YOLO or the you only look once and SSD, those are actually object detection networks, which
Okay.
are quite popular in the natural image or natural videos domain. So
Mm,
it's all established algorithms there. And the advantage of them is like these are very lightweight, like 14 MB and all is the space that it takes.
mm,
And that means actually you can put them on very portable systems, which are ultrasound systems, which are lightweight. So if you see a typical point of care ultrasound system, you have a probe and the back end is like a mobile phone. Okay, it's actually a mobile phone. So that is the advancement in technology that we have. So if we can develop algorithms which are lightweight and run on these mobile phones, you really don't need any other infrastructure. You just can put it there. So these are just object detection. So you when we run, so we have to develop the algorithms which are tuned to the lung ultrasound. So we did that. So you pass it through these object detection models, it will pick the important landmarks in the lung, and based on those landmarks and their quality, we will say the infection is severe or infection is progressing or it's subsiding. So we can easily tell that. So the reason why we went with these particular algorithms is because of that lightweightedness, where we can put them into the backend of the ultrasound system.
Okay. Professor, when we interact with the industries, and I ask them also this question, that why not you give outsource your projects and activities to academia and get their help? They said we have wonderful researchers over there in academia, but the only one complaint we have with them is like the timeline in which they complete the project. When I was going through your project, I found that the timeline in which you completed your project was less than 1 year. So how did you manage it? So what is the role of time management in executing the project?
Yeah, I think it was forced upon in a way because, as I said, it was COVID-19 sort of project. And second thing is like I use that term again, minimum viable product. So this is project is not over yet in that sense. Like there's a lot of things we can still build upon. But if I start doing that, as the time will never end, it just goes on. So we will give in terms of like what is the minimum requirement at
Okay.
that stage. So COVID-19 time, it was the minimum requirement is like you see the infection severity, whether it's actually high or low, so that the people needs to be admitted to ICU or ventilation is needed or not. So that was the judgment which was required. So it was not a screening tool in that sense. It was more like finding the infection severity to make a diagnosis based on that. And it is like clinician in the loop in
Okay.
that sense. So we're not replacing them, but aiding them and making the workflow faster, so that their time can be spent more on the detailed analysis rather than the this very high level analysis which is done by the AI algorithm inside.
So if we do our self-analysis, if we do the self-analysis, Professor, so what are the challenges you faced during this entire project?
Yeah, definitely. The major challenge was like, as I said, ultrasound is not popular in India. Very few people prefer it due to many reasons. And one reason is there is a PNDT law saying that ultrasound cannot be placed everywhere. You need a license and all. So that means the number of users were very less. So we needed to find out the right combination. So in that sense, Professor Kesavadas from Srijitra Institute, it's a top institute in South India. And then Professor Kiran Vishnu Narayan, pulmonologist. So we needed some experts who can help us. So we will take care of the technical part, but radiology side and the pulmonology side, we needed to find experts. And these two was very sort of supportive in that sense, and without them definitely it would not have succeeded even a single bit. So right point of time they came in and gave us with the data. And then outside of India there is Dr. Yale Tang Cheng. He's also an emergency medicine specialist, uses ultrasound a lot. So he also provided us with a lot of data set. And then once the group was formed, it was relatively easy because then we just need to interact with them and then take it forward. And later on, University of Alberta also came the team from there, Professor Jacob and Professor Abhilash. They also came in and accelerated the project to such a rate that now we have a bare minimum viable product ready, and whatever is subsequent to this will be all additional and fine tuned. So the right environment is
Yeah.
something which is the key to answer to your question very crisp. It's like in creating the environment is taking time. Once we have that, it is faster.
So how challenging is it to put so many people on board and collaborate with them, Professor?
I think all of them, in a way, I think that is not in our control. It's all outside of us. But if we have the right people and they are keen, I think everything will go through. In fact, there is no connection between any of us. It's like all of us voluntary come together and then sort of it went together. And I think some people say this actually a publication will sting, I mean, make that string all throughout the life. So we have some publications already. And then it's like it's tied up throughout the life for us, right? So this now keeps on coming and we can just progress based on that.
Wonderful.
So it is the effort from all those great people who never had time. Maybe I had more time than all those clinicians. So they came forward and that's the success of this.
Wonderful. That is required to come out with a really good product, which is relevant for the purpose it is created. Professor, you must have done the market survey also. Like when the product is rolled out, then what is the market potential for this particular product which we are creating?
Yeah, so the lung ultrasound before the COVID-19 era was sort of nobody was using, and people would have, clinicians would have sort of laughed at the usage of lung ultrasound. The primary reason is the lung being primarily like 90% air for a healthy lung. Ultrasound doesn't really penetrate it. But moment the lung infection starts, you have the fluid fillings and the tissue fillings inside, which allows the sound to go through, and that was the sort of a major turnover. And in India, if you see, there's nobody working on lung ultrasound, or ultrasound in general is very, very dominated by the MNCs like GE, Samsung. So there's nobody really locally sort of. There are few people coming up now, which I'm aware, but earlier there was nobody there at all. So that is something, and lung ultrasound, there's no work at all in India so far. So that is something which probably we started off, and after that, few works I'm seeing. But when we started in April 2020, there was nobody looking into it at all. And for TB, when I said lung ultrasound for COVID-19, but TB groups which we are also collaborating with and taking it together.
Okay, Professor. Now my next Professor, my next question is related to the facilities, research facilities in your institute, IIT Palakkad. Many of the viewers on my channel are those students who aspire to get specialized in different domains, and they aspire to pursue the career in research and development and want to get specialized in different areas. So I want to ask you, what are the IIT Palakkad being relatively new IIT? What are the various research facilities created there, especially in your field, your domain, biomedical devices and all, and why a student should look forward to join those research facilities and IIT Palakkad?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for raising that question. So, we are a new IIT, and one advantage I see is like the new IITs have that chance to create newer facilities and more advanced facilities compared to an older generation IIT. And that is our strength, I should say that. And I keep on saying to many new students during the orientation as well, that is something which you should leverage it because it's newer facilities. And to answer your specific questions, at IIT Palakkad, we have excellent facilities. So, we have consider these as central facilities. So there is a central instrumentation facility, which is sort of where the sophisticated instruments for characterization of materials and so on, which is kept at a single place, and any department can access it. It's not belonging to a particular department, but it's a central facility. Similarly, there is a central manufacturing and materials facility. The reason for that facility is because Coimbatore being very close to IIT Palakkad, Coimbatore is traditionally known for machineries and manufacturing, and also there is some advanced facility for the small scale industries can come up and use it in that sense, other than the research which is happening there. And then we have a small setup for fabrication as well, central micro nano fabrication facility as well. So these are the central facilities which are available for even students and researchers at IIT Palakkad, and those who are neighboring areas can come and leverage it. And personal side, we have a center for computational imaging also, which is slowly built up, where we are focusing purely on imaging, not just ultrasound, but imaging from a computational perspective. That means we're trying to improve upon the image quality from the image data itself. So that's a facility which we are trying to sort of set up here. And here we have the facilities to design sensors, sensor arrays, then signal processing, then images are formed, then image processing. So it's a full end-to-end sort of setup. And industries are also supporting, as I said, GE, we have active collaborative projects. NVIDIA and Texas Instruments are also sort of supportive in this. So any student who is coming and sort of joining us, particularly in biomedical team, I should say they are self sort of sufficient because all the facilities are already there. They can come and start doing the research immediately.
Professor, my next question is also related to this only. I personally keep on visiting various IITs. I have spent many years in IIT Delhi itself as a student. So I keep on I meeting people, and I found that old IITs, which I have seen from very close, they have got their own advantages, very senior professors, well-established labs, and system in order. When I go to new IITs, I find very energetic mentors like you, and new things coming up, like you mentioned about sabbatical being given to industries. IIT Palakkad is thinking about that. I visited and penetrated IIT Gandhinagar. So I found that director, teachers, mentors, executives in new IITs are full of energy, I mean experimentation, energy and everything. Now, this question normally comes to me from my own students who say that's an old IIT, new IIT. That, I mean, that is a classification in the mind, I will say. Old IIT, new IIT, sir. Are we going to get the similar kind of research exposure, or shall we be handicapped in some manner if we join the new IITs? So, what is your answer to that?
Yeah, it's a tricky question because definitely, I mean, we should all accept that getting into an older IIT has its own value and branding and all those things. Alumni support, which I think that's the biggest
Yes.
difference, a
Yes.
huge, huge and rich alumni that you
Yes.
bring to the table. But being from a new IIT, we think it's like a startup. So
Mm.
if you, this same dilemma that every student faces, whether to join an MNC, which is established, or join a startup. I think same analogy here. So the opportunities are sort of way different, and here it's much easier, as you rightly said, access to a professor is very easy in a new IIT,
Yes.
and the facilities are newer and newer. So
Mm.
modern facilities, maybe earlier it used to take 20 square feet, now it may be confined to 1 square feet. So you see the difference, that because technology wise everything is advancing at a very faster rate. So
Yes.
it's a right point that you take. So I
Mm.
should say that facility wise there's no compromise, and the researchers or the scholars wise also experience matters definitely. So those all IITs have excellent professors, established professors. We
Mm.
may build there slowly, steadily, but there are young professors at IIT Palakkad who are approach, or newer IITs who are more approachable and faster or
Mm.
easy accessible to the students.
Yes. Yes.
And so it's a trade-off sort of situation.
Yes.
And but from my experience last 4 years here, as a student, if you do good work, it
Mm.
really doesn't matter, because companies are looking for students with good background and good work, and they
Mm.
will take you.
Mm.
And then it's up to you, like, to grow there in the individual. So it's just a starting point, and
Mm.
if you do good work, definitely there is no lack of appreciation from the outsiders.
That's true. That's true. And I could see that in the new IITs, the kind of culture being set up, all the labs are interdisciplinary. One lab I visited in IIT Gandhinagar, I suppose that was civil engineering department, and professor I visited, and I found that a student from computer science background is also sitting, electrical background is also sitting, and the professor of civil engineering is working on artificial intelligence, on structures or something. So that has got its own advantages, as you rightly said. So yes, old IITs have got their own advantages, and new IITs have got their own advantages.
Absolutely.
Now, Professor, when students see profile of people like you and they listen to people like you, they obviously want to work under your mentorship, and they want to work with the people like you. Now, my question to you is, how do you identify the right student for you? What do you see in him? Whenever some comes, so what is your expectation from your prospective research students, whether masters or PhD? What do you want to see in them?
Yeah, definitely. I think, I mean, I'm not a very big person or anything, so please don't rate in that way. But from my whatever little experience that I have, actually, the what I look forward is not really the a lot of background work they have done on that. I'm not looking at that. The every time I have a call with them at the first time, the eagerness in them is what I generally look at. Whether they are eager really, or it is like they come for many of the students come for just getting reference letters for their application. I mean, to be frank, that is something which is very important for them, so they, that is okay. I think that is a bare minimum that students expect from a professor. But
Mm,
you should not be working on a project with that as your aim. Rather, you should
mm,
work on a project with improving your profile and knowledge in that project at
mm.
the same time.
Yeah.
So if a student is very eager, he doesn't have a background. For example, many students come without any machine learning background, but
Mm,
they have some knowledge about using Python and all those things.
mm,
Basics are not there. They come, but they are interested in joining the team on machine learning. So
mm,
if they are eager and willing to spend time to learn it, they will pick up eventually, because they are all talented in that sense. Whoever is coming, most of them have some background, and the adaptability and the eagerness to join and work with us is the important aspect. So if
mhm,
you are not eager, then the other side also, like me also, will not be eager going forward. It will just
mm,
subsides and it goes down. So
mm,
what I saw is, like, many students who come and been successful with working with us is those who are very eager and passionate about doing that. And
mhm,
eventually they will get publications, even patents. Nowadays India is improving that culture of patenting. I've seen a lot of patents being filed even here at IIT Palakkad with
mm,
undergraduate students, for example.
mm,
So that is going to help them as well. So if they do good work, it is not just about delivering to a professor some product or project, but they themselves are getting benefited indirectly or directly. So that is
mm,
something. So eagerness and persistence and passion
mm,
to
mm.
do that is important rather than just coming and doing for a reference letter that will not help them eventually.
Yeah, that's true. Professor, now because you have recently pursued your career, industrial career also, academics, may you have joined now in academics. So, what is your message to new research scholars who must be doing their masters, who must be doing their PhDs? So, what is your message? What is your advice to all such people to pursue a very wonderful career for them?
Yeah, I think that's a very generic question, and I'm just telling my opinion. Many of the professors or many of my colleagues may not agree to me also, but I should strongly encourage them to work in industry after the PhD or postdoc. You can do
Mm,
postdoc to get further experience, and then probably industry in at least 2 to 3 or minimum 5 years. That will be great, because I always like when we after coming back. I think when we teach a subject, you have a lot of experiences to share with the students.
yes.
So that is something which all of my students tell like the most interesting aspect, because some project failures, because everyone likes failures to be explained in detail. Should not have happened, and we have a lot of those experiences which will come from industry, and that definitely helps us. Even if it's a teaching career or a research career, that will always be at the back of mind and helps us to go in the right direction. So this is one advice, that don't jump into a teaching job or anything directly, but rather experience some projects or industry and then come back to teaching with a lot of experience in that direction. That will help. And then while doing PhD, I think many of us are pushed to publish and sort of faster publications and all those things. That pressure is there, but at the same time, enjoy the journey, because
Mm,
you are going to work on a problem in deep, and if you are at the end of it, you are more experienced and expert than your supervisor to
mm,
start with.
mm.
So that should be your aim actually in that
Mm,
sense.
that's true. Professor, wonderfully you have explained all my interaction points which I had jotted down to
Thank
interact
you.
with you. We have come to almost an end of this wonderful session, but I'm feeling like asking you to more things, to more questions which normally I ask. And number one is like, can you tell students some really good research domains in which they can think of going forward, like students from electronics electrical backgrounds, they normally they're confusion, they keep on asking which area we should go, they keep on talking about VLSI, signal processing, all these things. I want to ask from you, can you suggest some areas where they can focus for having good career thereafter?
Yeah, definitely. I think there are many good areas which are evolving, and the technology also is making a lot of quantum leaps in that. So, quantum computing is something which is getting very popular, and now it's a stage like we need to find a lot of applications around it. So, that's something which any student can look at. And then we are in the case of processing side, we are now making a cycle back, and many people are doing analog processing,
Mhm,
particularly the neuromorphic, which is like low power AI sort of systems,
mhm,
where brain is a classical example where you have micro milliwatts of power, but much better than many of the modern day supercomputers. So that is some low power computing is always been. This is for the electronics VLSI enthusiastic students. These are something which quantum computing, low power analog computing, this probably is something which they can explore. And those who are actually on the other side of the spectrum, where software and sort
mhm,
of analytics side of it, I think signal image processing will never die. I think there was some sort of conclusion saying that neural networks will replace everything, and
mhm,
you don't really need to study signal image processing classically. But that's not the case. There's a lot of things where you can incorporate signal image processing and neural networks combined together. So that is something like which is should be the future, where you have that domain expertise, and then you apply this and then come together. We call it as physics driven neural networks. So
okay.
that is something which is a very interesting area, at least in the areas that I work on. It's important rather than like a black box sort of approach.
Okay. Wonderful. So I'm sure students will listen to it and they will take the decision in that direction, Professor. Now, my last point of discussion for today's interaction is related to internship. There's so many institutes, especially new IITs, where they are promoting, professors are promoting that students from different institutes in India, they can come in the summers off or summer vacations and they can join internship and learn from the well-established labs in these centers of excellence. So, what is the situation in IIT Palakkad, Professor? Do you also motivate students from different part of India or world to come and do research under your mentorship for a couple of weeks or couple of months during summer breaks or something for internship?
Absolutely, yes. I think that is a common practice. So summer is typically the time, or even winter 1 month. So December time frame or April to June sort of July sort of time frame. Definitely there are even paid internships, and most of the internships are paid. In fact, IIT Palakkad has a scheme for that. And then our in top institutes in India, like Indian Academy of Sciences, for example, they have been running the summer research fellowship program. I used to get every year 2 students at least from that program. It's like a prestigious scheme, and a lot of students are getting it. These are not IIT students or any prestigious institute students. It's typical college students which are around. They are actually coming and participating in these programs, and they do really good job. So most of them will really good job. And even otherwise, I should say that if a student is interested, they should approach the professor, write an email addressing to him the specific areas they want to work on, and serious about it, not a common email, but very specific email. And most of the professors are willing to take them if they are very serious about it. They have fund, for example, project fundings, right? Beyond these typical internship programs, we have project fundings where we can take internship students.
So when you say paid internship, does that mean IIT Palakkad is going to pay the students for that?
Correct. So there is a sponsorship from IIT Palakkad or Indian Academy of Sciences, or the professors themselves have the project funding too.
Yeah, they have that. So that is wonderful, Professor Mahesh. And though it was a marathon session, but I must tell you that I fully relished it. It went so nicely. I could not even feel that we are talking for the last 1 hour now. You have provided all the things very systematic way, Professor, and the explanations and everything. And what I find is like the project which was displayed by you in R&D fair, and the technology which you are working looks like it is the new initiative, and we are going to become the pioneer in this particular domain with people on board. Looks like a very diverse kind of domains, doctors we have and researchers we have, and we will end up having a very good thing for providing a solution to some kind of medical problem we have. So wonderful, Dr. Mahesh, and I fully relished it. And I'll again thank you for the time you spared, and I wish you all the very best in your future endeavors.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Vijayendra. I think I should appreciate the background work that you have done and analyzing the profile, and also thanks for raising these questions and this excellent opportunity. And I wish you all the best in all the future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Namaste.